Hello, boys and girls. My name is Kalista Walker. A lot of people call me Miss K. I am a paraeducator at Erickson Elementary School in Ypsilanti, and I'm a mother of two sons. I am a graduate of Washtenaw Community College, and I have my associate's degree in liberal arts from Washtenaw Community College, and I also have a business sales and marketing certificate from Washtenaw Community College. I attended Erickson Elementary School when I was little, and I also attended Perry School when I was little. And I am going to read for you this book. I have been wanting to hear this book for a long time, and so I'm going to read it to you. It is called The Oldest Student: How Mary Walker Learned to Read, and it was written by Rita Lorraine Hubbard, and it was illustrated by Caldecott Honor winner Oge Mora. And this book is actually based off of an actual person. Okay, let's read a little bit about it. So it says in 1848, Mary Walker was born into slavery. At the age of 15, she was freed. At 20, she was married and had her first child. At 68, she was still working and raising money for her church. At 114, she was the last remaining member of her family. And at 116 years old, Mary Walker learned to read. It is never too late. It is never too late. At 116 years old, she learned to read. Many of you are learning your words, your sight words and things like that, and becoming really good readers. And you're 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, right? She was 116 before she ever knew how to read a word. Okay, and so this has different pictures of the actual Mary. So we're going to read a little bit about her story. That's pretty. That's pretty. I don't even know what to make of that. I can't imagine all those years. But she had a full life. She had a family. She was married. She worked. It was a very different time. Whenever young Mary Walker was tired, she would shield her eyes from the sun and watch the swallow-tailed kites dip and soar above the trees. That must be what it's like to be free, she thought. But Mary didn't watch for long. Even at only 8 years old, she knew the first rule of the Union Springs, Alabama plantation she lived on: keep working. A plantation is a place where they had slaves, and the slaves had masters, and the slaves worked for the masters. And see those trees with the white dots on them? That's cotton. That's them picking cotton, and they would do that all day long. She knew the second rule too. Slaves should not be taught to read or write or do anything that might help them learn to do so. Mary didn't stop working. She didn't learn to read either. But at the end of each long day, picking cotton, toting water to Papa and the other slaves who chopped wood for the train tracks, or helping Mama clean the big house, she would lie in her little bed next to the crumbling fireplace and think about those birds. When I'm free, I'll go where I want and rest when I want, and I'll learn to read too. Now, when they refer to the big house is usually where their master lived. It's sad. No person should ever enslave another person. Very sad. When she was 15, it happened. Mary and her mother, brothers and sister, were free. The Emancipation Proclamation said so. What it didn't say was how a family with nothing except the tattered garments on their backs could find food, clothes, and a place to sleep. Mary's father had died and the family was on its own. Freedom Road to Freedom Road. Across fields and through woods, ex-slaves surged like waves crashing hard to shore. Now that they were free, every road was Freedom Road. Many headed north and west and every which way, searching for long-lost family members or simply experiencing the wonder of being free. Others, like Mary, chose to stay in the South. As organizations called the Freedmen's Bureau helped those who stayed to find shelter on abandoned Confederate land, Mary and her family settled in a one-room cabin, and for the next few years, she worked alongside her mama to help feed her siblings. 7 days a week, she churned butter and cleaned houses and cared for others folks' children. Remember, she's quite young doing all this, 15, 16, 17 years old. The hours were long, and if Mary was thirsty or hungry or needed to use the outhouse is a bathroom, but it's outside of the actual house. She had to wait until she got home. At week's end, she would offer Mama the one lonely quarter she had earned. Sounds like she very much was committed to helping her mom and taking care of her family. It's a lot of work. But she sounds like she was a very good daughter. I don't know what it is with being pages, but they don't want to turn. There we go. Okay, one day Mary met a group of evangelists. On the roadside, a woman with soft wrinkles in her kindly face placed a big, beautiful Bible in Mary's hands and told her, "Your civil rights are in these pages." Mary didn't know what civil rights were. She only knew that top to bottom, front to back, that book was filled with words. "I'm going to learn to read those words," she vowed. But not today. Today, there was work to be done. See there? It says, "Your civil rights are in these pages." See how it looks like it's sort of singing from the woman's mouth? An evangelist. She was spreading a message, a spiritual message. And tomorrow too, when Mary got married, she and her husband worked as sharecroppers, renting someone else's house, using someone else's tools, and planting someone else's seeds to farm land they would never own. After they harvested the crops, almost all the money they earned went to pay for the housing, tool, and seed costs. Mary was 20 years old when her first son was born. She opened her Bible and marveled at the squiggles inside. There had been no time to learn to read. A friend wrote Mary's son's birth date in the Bible, August 26, 1869. So it's 2020 now, and her son was born in August of 1869. It's a long time ago. Then Mary dipped a pen into an inkwell and made her mark beside it. Not a letter, not a name, just a mark. It was the best she could do. And sometimes that is all we can do, is the best we can do. And then when you know better, you do better. She looked very sad on that picture. One day, Mary's husband died. She married again, and a second son was born. Then a third. Mary made marks for these sons too. Now she had 3 growing boys. More money, that's what we need, Mary thought. but the only other jobs available to black women were as maids or nannies or cooks. Nannies were women normally who took care of other people's children, it's like a babysitter. The hours were long with only half a day off on Saturdays, and like sharecropping, they didn't pay much. Mary sighed. Words would have to wait. For the next 4 decades, Mary sharecropped and did odd jobs to help support her family. In 1917, Mary's family moved to the little city of Chattanooga, Tennessee. It was the year of Chattanooga's Great Flood. The story was in all the newspapers, but Mary could only study the pictures to understand what happened. But now Mary was 68 and too old to sharecrop, but she continued to work cooking, cleaning, and babysitting. She also fried fish, baked cakes, and sold sandwiches to raise money for her church. On Sundays, she would sit in the congregation, and as the preacher spoke, she would clutch her family Bible, the Bible she still couldn't read. You notice her dream, she's keeping her dream alive. She has not stopped thinking about that Bible and learning to read all those squiggles on the pages. Those squiggles are words, right? When Mary was well past 90, she and her husband sat in their creaky rockers while one or another of their sons read to them. After the two younger boys died, the eldest read. Then Mary's husband died. Several years later, her eldest son died too. He was 94. Mary had outlived her entire family. She was 114 years old and alone. Can't read, she said. Can't write. I don't know anything. Mary stood at the window of her retirement home and gazed down at the world below. Words were everywhere, on billboards, on buildings, on store windows and trucks. She sighed. All this time, she thought, and they still look like squiggles. Mary had heard about a new reading class held in her building. She pursed her lips. No more waiting, she decided. Time to learn. Out of her apartment, into an elevator, and down to the lobby she went. When the elevator doors sprang open, Mary saw people sitting under a sign with a picture of an open book. She could not read the words. A neighbor walked up to her. "That's a reading class, Miss Mary. Can I help you over?" Very nice of a neighbor to come help her. She looks like a very proud lady in that picture. I like that picture of her. Mary shook her head, then she gripped her cane, lifted her chin, and walked straight toward that sign. For the next year and more, Mary put everything she had into learning to read. It wasn't easy. After all, she was the oldest student in the class, and probably in the entire country. Could someone her age learn to read? That's a good question. She didn't know, but by God, she was going to try. She studied the alphabet until her eyes watered. She memorized the sounds each letter made and practiced writing her name so many times that her fingers cramped. She learned to recognize sight words. Does that sound familiar? And then challenged herself to make short sentences with them. She studied and studied until books and pages and letters and words swirled in her head while she slept. That is determination. See that? Determination. 116 years old, studying the way letters sound, her sight words, challenging herself to make sentences out of them. One fine day, Mary's hard work paid off. She could read. Word of her accomplishment traveled, and people everywhere celebrated with her. Chattanooga's mayor, newspaper journalists across the country, and a man from the U.S. Department of Education who said, "Mrs. Mary Walker, I pronounce you the nation's oldest student," all shared her joy. See that sign? It says, "Happy birthday, Grandma Walker." They're all celebrating her. But I bet the biggest pride she had was the fact that she did not give up. All that she had been through, she kept that dream alive, and she made sure she learned how to read when she had the opportunity. So you got bakery, buy, shop. Now all these words are coming alive. Look at that. Look at that. So see, it was squiggles to her before because she couldn't read it. Now all of a sudden, it's a whole new world. Mary felt complete. She still missed her sons, but whenever she was lonely, she read from her Bible or looked out her window and read the words in the street below. From then on, Chattanoogan's honored Mary's achievement with yearly birthday parties. In 1966, President Lyndon B. Johnson sent well wishes on Mary's 118th birthday. And in 1969, President Richard Nixon did the same. Mary was now 121 years old. Mary received many gifts over the years: a radio, a sofa, her very first television, a new Bible, the keys to the city, and perfume and champagne from the Canadian Mounties. She also received something that brought back those long days in the Alabama cotton fields: her first airplane ride. From the cockpit window, Mary gazed at the trees and rooftops below. No different than a horse and buggy ride, she joked, but she knew it was. As the airplane dipped and soared like those swallow-tailed kites of long ago, Mary decided that flying was a lot like reading. They both made a body feel as free as a bird. Each year before her birthday celebration came to an end, someone would whisper, "Let's listen to Miss Mary." The shuffling and movement would fade away until not a sound was heard. Then Mary would stand on her old legs, clear her old throat, and read from her Bible or her school book in a voice that was clear and strong. She was very, very proud of her accomplishment. Wouldn't you be too? I would be. And to have people celebrate it with you, that's just a nice extra bonus. When she finished, she would gently close her book and say, "You're never too old to learn." Author's note: Mary Walker was born a slave on May 6, 1848. From a young age, she picked cotton, toted water, cleaned houses, and worked as a blacksmith. In later life, she never forgot the harsh punishments slaves received if they stopped working without permission. But she was quick to say that she had forgiven everyone for the things she'd endured. Very little is known about Mary's life from emancipation at age 15 until she learned to read at 116. But it is a fact that her Bible waited 101 years for her to learn to read it. It is known that Mary was married twice and had 3 sons. And that is the end of the oldest student, how Mary Walker learned to read. It's never too late to learn. Never too late to learn. Study hard, everyone. I'm proud of you. Bye.